Everyone, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Count on me always. In a short and directly, what we are living in the Amazon is running against a wall very quickly on the next months if the necessary actions are not taken seriously. So there is, three things that we'll get together in end of May, beginning of June, July. It's deforestation that is growing despite the coronavirus. It's basically increasing. In the first 3 months of this year, it increased 64% against the last period of last year. So it's still increasing strongly. And it's increasing more on protected areas and specifically on indigenous lands, which was basically a no-go area on, let's say, 10 years ago. And now it's basically people are just moving into those lands. And together with that, we have the fires that will come after deforestation. So fires are not a natural event in the Amazon. Fires just happen when somebody put fire. And so the fire comes on the areas that have been clear cut recently. So like after 2-3 months of the clear cut, you put fire, and this fire spread to the forest. And it's, apart from all the disaster in terms of environment, it creates a lot of smoke, and this smoke tends to send enormous amount of people to the hospitals and to the health system due to the breathing problems. So we have those two effects together with COVID-19, and it's like already now in April and May, the main cities in the Amazon have their health system totally crashed. So when it comes all of this together, it's like we're running to a disaster. So another effect that is just going there, which is kind of crazy, is that the greenhouse gas emissions is declining everywhere in the world, and in Brazil it's actually climbing precisely because of the deforestation growth. So the actions that we need right now is all pressure possible to constrain the actions that the government is taking, that it's basically promoting or blinding itself for the deforestation process that's happening. And we need to have a ban on fires this year, at least until the end of the year, to be able to at least face the, decrease the pressure of the health system in the coming months. And all actions possible to stop the invasion of indigenous lands, because it's also a health problem for those indigenous people. So I'll stop here and then come back to when we have the questions afterwards.
Thank you very much, Tasso, for that excellent overview. So then it gives me great pleasure now to move to Paloma. Paloma Costa is the coordinator of the Working Group of Climate Changes for the Ejamundo and advisor of the Instituto Social Environmental Institute. To Paloma, who has been tracking very closely the point that has been made already by Esme about how governments are and corporates are moving, and she will speak to that a little bit later. Paloma, without any delay, over to you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm super glad to be here and being able to talk to you all about the situation here, and especially how you can help us here and how we can help the world. With any further things to say for answering the question that was made. I think that we should remember that right now we are facing a systemic crisis. And this has been really clear to us all in different countries and different states and different regions and different places. And we should work together to address a just transition, and especially take the situation and lead the situation for a just transition for everyone and for all. And when we talk about the climate crisis, something that we as young leaders are the most aware of it in the whole world, we need to remember every time that the climate crisis is a matter of human rights and is a threat to human life. And we need to change these narratives and create a new history needed for us all. And what I want to say that must concern me is that without this conscience and respect for all forms of existence, while we are here defending ourselves from a virus that threatens all humanity, doing quarantine and self-isolation, and while indigenous people here in Brazil had to declare for themselves self-isolation and ban non-indigenous to enter in their lands, as they are the most vulnerable to when it comes to being infected by this virus, we see all around the world, and especially here in Brazil, that the governments are giving subsidies and are protecting special people who are big entrepreneurs and helping on destroying our lands, destroying the Amazon, destroy our forests. And we know that our forests are our life, and we cannot live without them. So this is the thing that concerns me the most, that in this time that we are all so vulnerable at home, and that indigenous people especially are inside their lands trying to face this big threat, and that is the COVID-19. There are people here in the Congress, in the city that I live with, because I live in Brasilia, that is the capital of Brazil. They are discussing and all the time trying to threaten our rights as humans and our rights as young people. So we need to unite ourselves and do something about it. And I'm so glad to be here to be able to talk more about the situation here in Congress and show and lighten a little ways that everyone can contribute, because I know that each one of you will be very important in this fight and will make like a big difference with us all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paloma, for that wonderful presentation and for being so clear. We look forward to hearing you in a short while again. Without delay, let's go to our next speaker, who is Miriam Yan. He's from the Guarani people. He's a student of geography at the University of Brasilia, and he's a member also of Engamundo and part of the Indigenous Council of the Federal District where he lives. Jan, it's with pleasure that we give you the floor and to hear your voice. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Chirama Mirinjobapu, Chamaya Jurapu, Chima Chandari Takpapua, Che Piratiningua Gretagu, Yande Carupadio, Chiretaraquere, the Carupadio, Juraquere. Hi, everyone. I'm talking a little in Guarani language, Yandawu, because you need to learn that have a lot of different languages, and each language have your own wisdom, your own consciousness. So we indigenous people in contact, in conversation with the European people, the not indigenous people, we need always be open, heart open to learn other things, other feelings, other intelligence. And the big issue that I see is the the point of view, point of understand of the identity of who we are, be based in a destruction of all the world. How a construction of a world than the human want can be based in all the destruction of others' worlds and the earth world. So it's like undoing what is nature done. We don't need kill the nature for be human being. We are being like a nature being, like an earth being. We are one with our mother earth. So the big consequence of all the acts of destruction of the nature, of the politics of the destruction, who have the monopoly of the all trying the domination of the world. So this view, they try to kill everything that not is from them. So all the difference, all the diversity, they don't want. And that make your politics be based in the destruction. So when they understand, learn with all the type of way to live, with the conscience, not only of the human, but the conscience of the nature, the conscience of the earth, we can understand they have a other point that the human needs to walk, not for your destruction, but for your be together. Thank you.
Thank you
It's
very,
all Fikumi.
thank you very much, Jan, for giving that picture from the ground, from your community. We now move to Ecuador, where we have two of our sisters there, Samia and Abigail, who will lead the conversation from Ecuador. They are two youth leaders of the Sarayaku community in Ecuador, which has been fighting to keep the land free from mining and extraction, and to protect the forest, their forest community and culture. Over to you, Samia and Abigail.
Hola con todos. Tenemos un poco de problemas de conexión desde Sarayaku porque estamos con el tiempo de lluvia y por eso es que se nos corta y regresa.
Hi everyone, we're having some connection problems because we're in our community and it's raining, so it's cutting off a little bit.
Bueno, vamos a cortar el video para nosotros poder tener una mejor conexión solo con el sonido. Y vamos a comenzar con el tema que nos han propuesto y seguimos con ustedes.
We're gonna cut our video so that you can hear us better due to the connection.
Bueno, Abigail va un poco a explicar sobre el tema de cómo hemos estado permaneciendo en nuestro territorio contra las petroleras y las mineras y todo lo que es extractivismo.
Abigail is going to explain a little bit about how we have been resisting against oil companies and mining companies in our territory.
Hola con todos, mi nombre es Abigail Gualinga, soy dirigente de jóvenes, soy parte del pueblo Sarayaku, no puedo decir que lidero y que he liderado esta lucha porque esta lucha es parte del pueblo, de todo un pueblo, de hombres y mujeres, jóvenes, niños. En realidad es una lucha de todo el pueblo, es de la que ahora somos parte, Sama y yo, y creo que los jóvenes que todavía seguimos participando y siendo parte de esta lucha.
My name is Abigail Walinga.
I'm the youth leader of Sarayaku. I could not say that this fight has only been mine, as it's been done collectively and by our elders before us and the entire community.
Bueno, creo que el impacto que ha tenido Sarayaku como pueblo es que desde las fechas que la compañía CGC intentó ingresar a Sarayaku, Sarayaku estaba en constante lucha. Nunca hemos estado tranquilos porque desde ese entonces hasta ahora siempre permanecemos en reuniones, participamos en foros, presentamos propuestas y no tenemos la vida que se tenía antes de que la compañía CGC quisiera ingresar a Sarayaku.
We had issues with a company called Sekese, and that happened about 20 years ago, 18 years ago, and since that we have never been able to rest. Our fight has continued, even though we were able to kick out the Sekese company. Our lives have never returned to what it was before the company.
Ahora tengo 24 años y en ese entonces tenía 6 años y creo que todos los que estuvimos en ese entonces de niños sabemos el impacto y la importancia de por qué decir no a la carretera, no a la explotación petrolera, no a ninguna empresa extractiva. Entonces creo que el deber de nosotros es a la generación que viene atrás de nosotros seguir informando y contarles todo lo que nos ha pasado y que por qué resistimos.
Now I am 24 years old, and when this happened, I was 6. I think that my generation and all the children that grew up in this process of fight and trying to protect our territories know the importance of protecting our lands and why we do this and why we have dedicated our lives to this cause. We need to teach this to the coming generations and
igual no ha sido fácil todo lo que ha pasado a Sarayaku. Para poder ganar el juicio mismo al Estado ecuatoriano duró 10 años, donde ha sido un periodo, días de mucho trabajo y seguimos hasta ahora. Y creo que todos los pueblos indígenas que nos enfrentamos a este tipo de extractivismo, de amenaza, no estamos viviendo en paz y nos cambian hasta la forma de vivir, porque nos toca seguir acoplando y enfrentándonos, buscando nuevas estrategias para poder enfrentarnos a ellos. Entonces, el impacto más grande es que nos han cambiado la forma de vivir de nosotros.
The case Sarayaku took 10 years for us to win the lawsuit against the Ecuadorian government due to the human rights violations that occurred in the process of kicking out the Sekese company from our territories. And we say that we as indigenous people will live in peace, but we cannot live in peace when we constantly have these threats against us. We have to fight every day. We have to find new strategies to keep them out of our territory.
Bueno, hola con todos otra vez. Mi nombre es Sama Iwalinga. Soy dirigente de Transporte y Comunicación. Hasta ya mismo acabamos. Bueno, para poder también un poco explicar cómo ha sido el impacto dentro de nuestro territorio, es un ritmo que se tenía, ha cambiado totalmente. Se puede decir que como mujeres, las mujeres tenemos una vida con la tierra y la tierra con nosotros.
Hi everyone, my name is Samay Walinga. I'm the communications leader of Sarayaku. She says that our ways of living have changed, and that we as women have a connection with the earth, and the earth has a connection with us as women.
Cuando uno, por ejemplo, cuando uno quiere seguir el ritmo cotidiano en Sarayaku, tú tienes una chacra, tienes tu casa, tu familia, tienes la labor que tienes que ir a la chacra y todo, pero cuando tú comienzas una vida para defender el pueblo, tienes que intentar hacer los dos o dejar de lado la otra vida, para poder proteger a tu pueblo. Eso ha sido uno de los impactos más grandes que puede haber en Sariaco, en mujer o hombre.
In our everyday lives in Ecuador and Sarayaku, we go to the fields and we find our food in the forest, and this is what we do every day. But when we are forced to protect our territories, you either have to choose to protect your land or to keep on going with your everyday life, but because both are very hard.
Bueno, y se puede decir también que el ritmo cambia también en Sariaco. Hay otra manera de vivir, hay una preocupación, hay, no, como dijo Abigail, no estamos en paz y tenemos que estar todos los días alertas y estar informados si es que hay nuevas rondas petroleras, si es que hay nuevas aperturas de minería, de todo esto, pero no solo es el extractivismo en petróleo y en minería, también tenemos todo lo que es la balsa, la tala de balsa en las cabeceras del río Bobonaza, que es nuestro río principal, que ha hecho que tengan grandes consecuencias, como la inundación que sufrimos el 17 de marzo. El 17 de marzo sufrimos todo el pueblo de Sariaco, de Pacayacu y de Molino y Teresamama, porque tenemos mucha tala de balsa en las cabeceras del río. Entonces, eso tendríamos que explicar con mucho más tiempo. Gracias.
This is what we face every day, that we have to change our lifestyles to protect our territories. But then we also have the everyday worry of, will there be new oil companies or mining companies entering our territories? Or, for example, we have had a lot of issues with loggers in our headwaters, which has caused that we more frequently face floods. And that is what happened in last month, that we had one of the most extreme floods we've ever seen that we have ever seen in.
Thank you, Elena. So folks, we've had the first set of conversations, introductions now. And thank you to our sisters from Ecuador, from Sarayaku. We now are wanting to move to the second part of the conversation, where we've identified some questions, but we're asking the panelists from now onwards to also be telling us, for those of us who do not live in the Amazon, to be suggesting also how we can help in solidarity from the outside. So we first will turn to Tasso, who will be showing one of the horrible things that is happening in the Amazon, is that illegal deforestation has mainly grown in protected areas where indigenous peoples and other communities live. And it's puzzling. So Tasso, can you explain why there has been such a push in protected areas in the last year? Over to you.
Thanks, Kumi. We just finalized a big report that is that evaluate every single deforestation alert that happens in the Amazon last year, which was over 80,000 alerts saying there is deforestation happening here and there. And after analyzing all of those one by one and checking what is linked to those deforestation, we find out that about 98% of this is illegal. Means that it don't have authorization, or it's happening on protected areas, either indigenous lands, national parks, areas that are protected inside private properties, and so on. So it's a phenomenon that it's happening everywhere, which is basically deforestation is something illegal that's happening there. And it's not just for the Amazon, it's happening in, you know, from all the biomes in Brazil, all over Brazil. Deforestation is basically an illegal activity. And so illegal activity happens when you have the sensation that you will not be caught and there will not be a consequence when you are doing this deforestation. So for example, between 2005 and 2012, when we have the largest decrease on deforestation in the Amazon, about 80% of decrease on deforestation. What was very clear at that point is that it was not acceptable any type of deforestation on protected areas. And so by giving this clear sign that if you get to the protected areas, you will be caught, you will be receive penalties, you will not be able to sell your products and so on, or you will not be able to get the land and stuff like that, then you could prevent the people to profit from this illegal deforestation, and then this was decreasing. What's happening right now in Brazil is the signs that are given to the people that are invading those lands is that there will not be a consequence. And it's even worse because there is a sensation that protected areas can be unprotected, which means like you can change the borders of the protected areas to decrease their size. And also there is almost a commitment from the government to not recognize, you know, 1 new square meter of indigenous lands or community land, and also the intention to open the indigenous lands and protected areas for mining and other activities. So these all are giving signs for the people that are doing illegal logging and illegal deforestation that they will be able not just to profit from these illegal deforestation, but also that they will be able to get land recognized or get titles over the land, or they will not be punished in any way for the, you know, for the illegal activity. So what it means for everybody out there in the world, like Brazil has, just for have an idea, Brazil has 5 million properties, rural properties. And we have deforestation happening, 50,000 of them. So it's like a fraction. It's 1% of the properties that are being clear cut. So the thing is, it's absolutely crucial that since Brazil is a big exporter of products that come from the Amazon, whether this is mine, whether this is like cattle and meat or soybean and so on. So it's extremely important to ask and to push the companies and all the ones involved in the trade of those products that they must guarantee that those products are not coming from a deforestation. And you can say deforestation is in general because it's 98% of the deforestation is illegal, like not coming from deforestation and not coming from any activity that's threatening the indigenous lands. So it's a very simple manner to guarantee that this is that's happening. So we need tracking, we need chain of custody to guarantee that.
Thank you very much, Tasso. The story you tell is devastating to hear. The fact that not only is the rate of deforestation one of the highest it's ever been, but what you are suggesting is that moves are afoot to consolidate this and make this a permanent pattern of behavior. And some of the ways they're doing that brings us to our next speaker, Paloma, again, to reflect on some of the moves that are happening in the Brazilian legislature that is laying the basis for legalizing some of these illegal acts now and consolidating this pattern in the future, which we need to resist. Over to you, Paloma.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, as I was saying, coronavirus exposed this broken system, and while governments are giving subsidies to banks and subsidies to big producers and landowners, we need to build this new narrative, lead from us all. For example, here in Brazil, deputies made a law project that built an emergency fund for indigenous and traditional people who are the most vulnerable ones to the COVID, for them to pass through this situation and have like national support and state support for them to be inside this quarantine period, because they don't have access for ICUs or respirators in the places that they live off. Mostly on those states, we don't have the full and the necessity of these materials to make like a good healthcare of them. So this is super important. I think a lot of you saw that also Greta helped us on a campaign that for all world to help with the state of the Amazonas in the state of, as the capital is Manaus, because there the situation is one of the worst here, because the COVID has already entered inside indigenous communities, and they don't have the small needs for healthcare, and they are dying inside the houses that keep indigenous people because they are all there, they don't have the materials, and people cannot handle with the recommendations given because we don't have space or even materials, as I said. So a lot of them are getting infected when they come to the cities to be treated for any kind of disease they are having, and they are getting COVID inside the places that they should be healthcare. So this is truly difficult for us to be hearing, as we are here in big cities, and how can we help with that? But to continue to expose what is happening in the Congress, I want to take the first threat. I want to talk to you about the first threat in the Congress of Brazil. This threat is regarding the regularization of the land use in Brazil. We made like a huge campaign in the past week with a lot of different sectors and actors from different parts of Brazil, like singers and famous people here, youth people, scientists, and everyone, to stop this law project that they say it's for regularization of the land, but to be honest, is to stole lands. And as Tasso was beautiful saying about the increasing of the deforestation here, this also happened because of the things that are happening in the Congress, and also because of the things that our dear president says all the time, that helps like increasing the stealing of the lands and the invasion of the lands. This is a very difficult topic to be discussing during COVID times, because we have different interests and views regarding the land use. And the worst is that this special project that we were able to stop during this week, but right now the Congress, as the majority of the Congress that are ruralists, as we call them here, that are big landowners and big monoculture producers, they are the majority on the Congress. And they say they have an agreement with the society, but this is not true. So we were able to stop the last law project last week, but they made another one to be voted on this week. So that's why I'm here, and that's why we need full support for this to not pass. Because this law project that is trying to be voted during COVID times, where we have like so many emergency and first things that need to be addressed first. They guarantee people with bad intentions and the law to protect those peoples on this criminal organization of stolen lands and invasion of lands that helps on increasing the deforestation. And we don't want our Amazon forest to be stolen from a criminal organization. We want to be consulted. We want an ample discussion and participation regarding to it, so we can all put our views into concrete deliberation where we can say what is important for our future as young people, as indigenous people, as scientists, as landowners, and these different sectors that have a lot of intentions and a lot of things to say regarding the land. And right now, I think I need to make it clear that our Congress in Brazil is not working with full democracy. The participation of the civil society is not guaranteed, because most of the decisions and a lot of the decisions are being made on WhatsApp groups because of the COVID situation. And this horrible organization and criminal organization that have a lot of ruralists, they are trying to legalize the stealing of the lands and increasing the deforestation with this excuse that is for regularization for small producers. And this is not true. This is a lie. And we don't want this to be and keep happening in doors that are not open to us. We don't think it's urgent to be discussing about regularization of land use right now. We think we need to tackle and address the situation of the most vulnerable people as the indigenous lands and people on the favela, because they are the ones suffering the most. And people are trying to talk about lands in the Amazon and destroy the Amazon that is all for us. We don't have the mental health to be dealing with this right now, to be honest. And the second threat that I wanted to take here is the regularization of mining and being entrepreneurs in indigenous lands. They are not trying to vote this right now, but this is the worst law project to the indigenous people here in Brazil. And to be really honest, is a project that is a clear genocide and ecocide plan, and that of our government. Because we know that all of our lives depend on the service given by the forest, and we need to remember always to defend our defenders. I know that Tasso can explain a lot better with the geoprocessing thing, that is how it's clear that the indigenous lands are the places where we have less deforestation and we have like more forest up and forests there, because this is regarding to their culture, their ways of being, and their lead as part of the defenders. And it's super important for this to be put inside everyone's mind, because we cannot let in any scenario to people destroy indigenous lands or destroy our forests. And when they try to do that, at least they have to make a conversation with us and that we all participate. So we need to be all in support. Yeah, okay. So we need all to be in support with our indigenous friends.
Thank you very, very much, Paloma. If I might share a brief reflection. You know, in 2010, 11, 12, 13, that period, I had the opportunity to be in the Amazon, in Manaus, in Santarém and Para State and so on. And even though things were bad then, there was a sense of optimism that things were getting better. I think right now we have to understand that this is a emergency situation. We've got a leader who came to power in ways that are questionable. And it is very interesting to see that there are two leaders in the world that are most denying the reality of COVID and the lives that are taking. it would appear that both these leaders are comfortable with the idea that this virus takes primarily people of color, which might suit their electoral calculations. But let's be clear that both Trump in Washington and Bolsonaro in Brazil do not speak for either the American or the Brazilian people on these issues. Clearly that these injustices that Paloma talks about are ones that need to be resisted, as she suggests. Now, sadly, the situation in Ecuador is no different in the sense of the vulnerabilities of indigenous peoples to this virus. And I would like to go back to Samia and Abigail now to just reflect a bit on, you know, Ecuador now is one of the worst affected countries by COVID. How are the Sarayaku community itself directly attached? And after we have that question, we hope to go to Jan and then open it up for questions that people have been sending in. So over to you again, Samia and Abigail. And Elena, maybe you can translate that question if necessary, please. Thank you, Elena.
Of course. Ning iminata ning Ecuador si kaiwing mundo. Oh, was she disconnected?
She's still
Samay?
here.
Yeah, yeah. Yay kunchim kutilapa.
Okay. Ecuador si kaiwing mundo y más afectado aún ni kay coronavirus manda. Ining iminata sa epiga ungichi iminata kay situación da sarabongichi ni. Cuentan sabchi.
Ya, bueno, bueno, en Ecuador tenemos 31,000 casos confirmados, como cuando vemos en las noticias o en el internet, y casi 4,000 y más muertos. Nos informa, es lo que vemos en todas las noticias y cómo va avanzando. En nuestra provincia tenemos 122 casos y en Sarayaku no hemos tenido hasta ahora ningún caso. Estamos esperando que no llegue ningún caso tampoco a Sarayaku, porque si es que llegara a pasar, sería una enfermedad que puede exterminar a nuestros ancianos y a nuestros sabios, que son los más importantes dentro de y a las personas que son más vulnerables. Es lo que entendemos sobre el coronavirus.
So Ecuador, as you said, has been going through a very difficult time with the coronavirus. There are almost 4,000 people that have died that are confirmed as coronavirus, and 31,000 confirmed cases. In our province, we have about 200 cases, but fortunately, we do not have any cases in Sarayaku. We do hope that we can keep this from entering our territories, because otherwise it could wipe out our elder generations that are the most important ones to us. They are the ones that have our knowledge and that keep teaching us every day. And also the people that are more vulnerable.
Lo que preocupa bastante, nosotros como hacemos parte del Consejo de Gobierno, y el Consejo de Gobierno es el que tiene que procurar que el pueblo esté bien y que siga adelante. Claro que el Consejo de Gobierno es bajo mando del pueblo de Sarayaku. Ahora el problema es que la necesidad llega al pueblo. Como habíamos dicho antes en el otro tema, hemos sufrido una inundación que ha destruido muchas familias las casas, sus agriculturas, y estamos en escasez de alimentos. Entonces la gente de Sariaco comienza a sufrir necesidades en alimentos, necesidades en salud, en educación. No tenemos un centro de internet en cada pueblo de Sariaco, solo lo tenemos en un solo lugar y es una señal muy baja. Entonces, los estudiantes necesitan conectarse para mandar sus trabajos porque la educación es virtual ahora, a causa del coronavirus. Y la gente comienza a tener todas estas necesidades y necesita ir a la ciudad para poder realizar todo esto, este seguimiento que es la alimentación, la educación y la salud. Y esto hace que sea más peligroso para la comunidad que el virus pueda ingresar en las personas que salen y entran.
So Samai is part of what is the government in Sarayaku. She's a leader there. And she says that we as the leaders, the elected leaders of the community, it's our responsibility to make sure that this does not happen in the community. We need to make the decisions to keep our people safe. And we are very worried because, as I was saying before, Sarayaku was hit by floods that were so extreme that a lot of people lost their homes, and everyone in the community that have their fields by the riverbanks have lost their fields, which is a huge part of our community. We are very scarce in food, that we have never faced a situation like that before. So because we have lost our fields, we do not have food anymore in our community to rely on. Our health systems in the communities are not very good. They are underfunded. And the internet connection is also very bad. We do only have one place in the community that has access to internet. And now the students also in the community have to keep up with their schoolwork virtually, which means that they are in need of internet. And this all is happening at the same time as the coronavirus is going on in the cities, and the people of the communities are in need of food, they're in need of medicines, and they're in need of education, which means that some of the people have seen themselves forced to leave the community to go to the cities, and we are very worried.
Dentro de este concepto es llegar a la conclusión de que el gobierno no tiene estrategias para poder ver cómo sería la urgencia sanitaria para un pueblo indígena, no solo para Sariaco, sino para todos los pueblos que hay en el Ecuador. Es una de las dificultades que tiene el gobierno de saber cómo puede proteger, si en la educación mismo no tiene el cómo poder educar virtualmente a un estudiante dentro de la Amazonía si no tiene la conexión a internet. Son soluciones no basadas a la plurinacionalidad que Ecuador habla, y eso es ahí la decadencia que los pueblos indígenas podríamos sufrir. Y el pueblo de Sariaco, como Consejo de Gobierno, tenemos que ver soluciones sin tener el mismo recurso que tiene el gobierno para poder ayudar a su país. Dan una mínima cantidad de dinero, como a las juntas parroquiales, que son las que están a la cabeza de los pueblos legalmente con el Estado, pero dan apenas un valor, digamos, $30,000 para 32 comunidades que abastece una junta parroquial, que no abastece a ni una de las comunidades que tiene para poder ayudar a esta enfermedad o combatirla.
Here in Ecuador, we are lacking strategies from the Ecuadorian government that are adequate for indigenous people. They have not thought about how the difference between the rural areas and the cities, and how this has a different impact in the Amazon and in indigenous people and indigenous communities. they have not thought about how they are not thinking about how we, for example, do not have access to internet in the rural areas or indigenous communities, and now the education is virtually. How are the people in the communities going to have access to education? This is not respecting the multicultural state that Ecuador is. These rights need to be respected. And now the government of Sarayaku, which Sama and Abigail are part of, need to make these very hard decisions and restrictions without the access to the same information that the Ecuadorian government has and the economic resources that the government has. And she's also explaining that the government is offering $32,000 for 30 communities, and she says that that is not even nearly enough for to support these communities, as this is very little in comparison to the
Thank you very much, Sameya, Abigail, and Elena, for that translation. The story that you tell and all that we've heard so far make it very clear that what is needed right now in terms of activism is not pushing for small changes. This virus has exposed injustice and inequalities from the Amazon to the Congo Basin forest to New York City to London, everywhere in the world. So in fact, what the virus has done has actually held up a mirror to show all the injustices and deprivations that people are suffering. So clearly this is a moment for us to be thinking more boldly, more strongly, more revolutionary. And I think that, you know, what we are talking about clearly, if we look at all of the presentations, we're talking about a need to fundamentally transform our economic system, our energy system, our food system, and much more. And so when we're talking about a context of that kind of change, I'm pleased to inform you at this point that Jan is going to close us in half an hour with a traditional song from the Guarani people, because I think my experience teaches me is that all revolutions for change need culture and song and activism. So that will be a good way to speak. But for now, to end, but for now, I turn to Jan. Jan, please be a little bit shorter because you will have the last word as well. Maybe if you can just spend a few minutes explaining the difficulties in Brazil and particularly how it impacts on your community in this current moment. And what kind of solidarity will be helpful for people from outside of your community. Over to you, yeah.
Hi, thank you. So let's continue the debate, the conversation. I agree with all being said. So in Guarani, we have our traditional leaders. I'm not a traditional leader, but I always listen to our leaders. Listen to our communities. So what is happening with us Guarani people? It's like the sister indigenous said, is the so close that happen with there in there, because it's common with all the indigenous relationship, because we are so affected. Now, all of the human world is having now the COVID problem. But in our indigenous world, we have to the attempt of destruction of our worlds, the development of the destruction of the nature. So is all that and the COVID problem, and the COVID problem are not, they are doing not done. So no, don't have a help policy to indigenous people. So the present emergency situation is for show us the big emergency situation, who is destroying all of the life. The development of the structure of the rivers, of the forests, of the mountains, all the biodiversity is not a good thing. That's illegal. The attempt to kill the earth is not what the humanity needs. Right? And so how we can live in the earth with not killing the earth? What the consequence is the human kill yourself. It's suicide. So we and the nature have an intimate connection. And we need to live in harmony. And this is a principle of indigenous consciousness. So you all need to learn it with us, because we are learning. So promote with your politics for respect to the nature, to be responsible. So everyone needs to act. And if you, everyone wants the nature in the world, needs to awake your inside nature. Be nature. Learning it with us. And then we can be one, the really united. Don't wait the salvation. Be the cure. Live the cure, a cure way to live. So everything that you can do is a lot of things. It's an internal, inside thing, and out thing. Talk with civil society. Be an organization, civil society, and help the indigenous organizations. Because the government are not helping us. The real politic is the kill, is the destroying. That's what happened. We know that that is not what are in the Constitution, but it's the reality. We are being killing just to live how we live, just to be who we are. And that is a genocide. We need to be very open eyes to understand that genocide what happened right now, and not only in the past, in Hitler thing, in the all the others wars. No, have a war against the indigenous people right now. There's a war against the nature right now. So you understand that, tell to your friends, and show to your family, your politics, and learn with us how we can live in harmony with the nature. Then we are living and be the ancestral and the new thing in balance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jan. And thank you also for shifting us in the last 20 minutes that we have for our webinar, for shifting us in the direction of solutions. So I just want to take what you said. You're saying that there is lots of options of people who are not from the Amazon to offer solidarity and support for people who are living and struggling in the Amazon. Point one. Secondly, you're specifically saying that civil society within Brazil as a whole, indigenous and non-indigenous civil society, needs to be mobilized and be more active, as well as civil society needs to be much more aware globally. So those of us on this webinar that are outside of the Amazon, our task is to ensure that all of these stories that we've heard today, these terrible injustices, are given the highest level of profile, that we are putting pressure on our own governments and so on. So with that example, what I thought was, why don't we go back next to Paloma and then to Tasso and our colleagues in Ecuador, to give each of you a chance in 1 minute, right, to say, like Jan did, what is one of your requests in terms of solidarity from people around the world? So Paloma, can I come to you for your 1 minute? What would your suggestion be to those of us who are here, who are hungry to show solidarity and support the peoples of the Amazon region in all the countries that where the Amazon is? Over to you, Paloma.
Okay, thank you. As the three of indigenous people who are here in the meeting told us about their situation, I think the first thing and more important thing that people can be doing right now is to donate directly for the communities. So I put on the chat a website from my organization that united all of the crowdfundings here in Brazil. And if it's there any friend that you have or any community that you want to donate directly, you can talk directly to me in my email because I can connect to them. The second thing I think is to pressure the leaders of the Congress in Brazil, Davi Alcolumbre and Rodrigo Maia. I already passed it to Ade, their Twitter and Instagram, and you can be helping us on stopping the votation of these law projects here in Brazil, doing cyber storms with them. They will love it, you will see. And the other thing that I think is really important that everyone can be doing is to pressure world leaders for an emergency fund for indigenous people here in Latin America. Or pressuring your governments to not make trade agreements with Brazil if these agreements implicates on deforestation and the killing of indigenous people here. So we all need to be really aware. We know that the Mercosur agreement with the United European Union is being held, so we need to be aware of it and do not let pass articles that represent deforestation or the killing of indigenous people. And of course, always build awareness of other people on the situation here. We are very accessible. So if anyone wants to talk to me directly and understand something, we will be very helpful to help on that. And share what we are doing on our social media, especially the indigenous social media. And I will put one in the chat that is the National Association of Indigenous People here in Brazil. They are all the time talking about what's happening here. So it's really nice if you can follow and share and build this world awareness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paloma, for those suggestions. Very clear. In the interest of time, I won't summarize. Let me go to you, Tasso. Perhaps if you can focus a bit more specifically on, in terms of defending the forests right now, what can people do from outside, as well as we've talked about how we can support communities, but maybe on the broader trajectory of where things are looking for the Amazon, how can we be helpful in solidarity from outside of the region? Over to you.
Yeah, I would basically, in summary, sign up on everything that Paloma stated. I think she really put the 4 points that are crucial: direct support to civil society and indigenous communities. And I think Paloma could be like the hub to get the different addresses and areas that you could do it. Just be careful that there is always on those circumstances there are potential schemes happening. So it's good to go to one place where we can be sure that this is going directly to the people. So I suggest that you follow Paloma lead, and then she will help you to kind of direct this to the different good sites to do it. There is one thing called the Aliança Amazônica, which is formed by several NGOs. They are giving support directly to different groups all over the Amazon to guarantee that they have the necessary support. So I would add this one. And the last is it's basically spread out the information, keep making pressure. We are in a type of crisis that the pressure from inside, it's very limited. But the pressure that comes from outside that can, especially if they have impact on the market and selling of products, etc., this is absolutely crucial. So put the responsibility on the chain of custody on the markets to be sure that whatever we related to Brazil, it's related basically on the sustainable practice.
Thank you very much, Tasso. I want to now go and get our views from our sisters in Ecuador, from Sarayaku. What suggestions, Elena, if you can please translate for our sisters there. If you had one suggestion of what people from outside your community, both within Latin America, but also globally, what can people do to support? Elena.
Samaya bika sapapung matata shuk lakta mandaru naguna rurano shano yana panga wanisha shuk sukrens ta kuichi iminata yana pano shano kai Latin America manda chanda wing manda chanda wing.
Explica yang punda nyukan sa tarimangroni yabi kutipa chingaro chimi masti chasani
Shuk minuto mo para rimana.
Kireg 50 rimangroni.
Gonna say one thing and I'll be one thing.
Bueno, nosotros, como habíamos explicado, hemos sufrido la inundación de Sarayaku, que ha destruido como 31 familias y el 80% del pueblo de Sarayaku ha perdido sus agriculturas y chacras. Entonces, nosotros hemos creado un crowdfunding para apoyar a las familias que han perdido sus casas para que ellos no tengan que salir a la ciudad para comprar sus materiales para la reconstrucción y igual para las chacras, que son los materiales y las semillas. Entonces, esa es una de las ayudas que nosotros necesitaríamos para que Sarayaku pueda estar dentro de su territorio y no poder contagiarse del coronavirus. Abigail va a decir la otra parte.
No, lo que se pediría es a todos ustedes a que nos ayuden a difundir cualquier información que cualquier pueblo indígena o cualquier sector social esté haciendo una lucha, que ustedes nos ayuden con difundir y de esta manera presionar a los gobiernos nacionales de cada país a que no nos sigan reprimiendo los pueblos indígenas y que nos unamos todos a luchar contra este sistema que nos está acabando a todos, ya que los pueblos indígenas no luchamos solo para nosotros, sino para el mundo entero.
Elena? Elena? Over to you for translation.
So Samai said that what you can do right now in this moment is that, for example, Sarayaku lost about 32 families in Sarayaku have lost their homes due to their floods, and about 80% of fields have been lost in the community, which means that there's no food sovereignty in the community and that people are forced to go to the city. So right now we have created a crowdfunding to support these families and to help them build up their homes, and that is something that is an emergency help. But Abigail says that in the long run, we need to support spreading information about what is going on in the indigenous communities in the Amazon, pitching these to the news sources in your own country so that people are aware of what is going on here and what is happening so that the government does not keep oppressioning these communities that are fighting against against deforestation, oil companies, mining companies, etc.
Thank you very much, Elena. Thank you very much for the responses from Ecuador. So we have about 10 minutes, 9 minutes left. So, and I think we wanted to have Jan close us out with the traditional Guarani song. However, in the remaining time, I want to note that many of you all in the conversations you'll have had, we're very keen to hear from people what we could do from outside. And so we have summarized the points that have been made here, as well as have identified a range of resources already, which we will share with all participants about organizations you can support, how to contact people, and so on. And so we will send out something to the participants, and Youth for Climate will continue to work with their partners on the ground in the Amazon. Now, the two questions that came up, which I think we can leave hanging there for us to look at, because they're good provocative questions. In addition to you wanting to know what can we do, the two questions that stood out for us are actually questions that suggest what we might do in the future. And the two questions are, could we draw inspiration perhaps from the Dakota Pipeline grassroots movement in 2016 by the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in the northern United States that got worldwide support and temporarily blocked the pipeline? So the question is, could we do that, right? So that question is there for us to consider. I don't think we need a specific answer, but unless one of the panelists wants to pitch in. But I think that struggle showed that international solidarity made a difference, and we need to make sure, those of us outside of the Amazon, that we are able to at least equal the level of solidarity that we mobilize to prevent the Dakota pipeline. The second question, which is related, is how can the international community make the voice of the scientists and experts heard about the worsening situation in the Amazon? Could the climate scientists from Europe and other parts of the world sensitize the respective governments? And I think the answer to both of these questions is, we want the answer to be yes. We want our scientists to do that. We want to build a global coalition and so on. But I'm afraid we are tight on time, so I'm saving the last 5 minutes for, thank you for Adelaide to do. I just want to check, any of the panelists would like to speak to those two questions briefly? Tasso, would you like to briefly say something? And Paloma, I'll come to you next. Tasso, the floor is yours.
Paloma, can you go first? Just because I'm...
We can hear you. We can hear you clear. Okay, Paloma, you want to go first?
Okay. Hello, everyone. So it's regarding the
those two questions and two suggestions. Do you agree? Do you encourage us, those that are not in the Amazon, to push on those?
Yes. I think like it's really important to go like on strikes together. For example, when it happened, the Amazon fires, and we did a global strike for that, it made like a lot of pressure here in the government, and it was really important. So I think when things we are not in this self-isolation period, I think it's something that we can work on building like a common strikes, or to have like a common pressure on world leaders on what they could be doing. I feel like all the time it's super important when we have like this support, this global support, because most of the times we don't have like space to be talking, or people don't actually pay attention to that. And I was talking, I work also in the UN, giving an advisor to the UN, and all of the time they talk to me that the better way to make pressure on my government, that is a fascist government, is to have the help from other world leaders. So if you can help on this pressure, this will be super important. And that's it. Like I share with you the Instagrams of the indigenous organizations here that are all the time talking about the indigenous situation here and also on the environmental problems. So I think it's nice for you to share and to invite them to be speaking. I'm also free to help with translations or anything needed.
Thank
So
you.
it will be really important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paloma. Tasso, I'm going to ask for your indulgence. We've got 3 minutes left. So I hope, I was reading your body language. It seems like you were aligned and with what Paloma was saying. Great. Thank you for that so much. So 2 things that are left to do. I want to go to Adelaide first to quickly do a thank you that she wanted to do to the panel. Then I will say few sentences, and then we go to Jan to close us off with the song. Adelaide, over to you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this Zoom. We had some technical problems, so on Facebook and on YouTube, the sound was off at the beginning, but you should know that we will work on a post video that you can rewatch this panel later during the week. Don't hesitate to check then our Youth for Climate Facebook page and YouTube page. I would like to also thank our co-hosts, Greenpeace International and Belgium, WWF Belgium, as well as Amnesty Belgium and France that shared this webinar, and also Youth for Climate France. Thank you so much for sharing the information. It was really over all Europe, so that was very important. And then, of course, a big thank you to Kumi for moderating. It was really amazing to have you here. And also thank you to Princess Esmel and Sveralda, who helped us to co-organize this webinar and to have all the speakers here. So thank you very much. And now I think the floor is to Jan. And of course, thank you to our speakers for coming. And I really hope the world is now all around Europe, and we will do our best to share more about your stories.
Thank you, Adelaide. Jan, in handing over to you, I just want to say that we live in a moment of history where we need to turn this moment of crisis into a moment of opportunity. We cannot go back to a post-corona world of what we had. We have to not just build back our societies, we have to build back with more justice, with more equity, with more sustainability. And for all of these, we need a different mindset. We need to recognize our economy is broken, our energy system is broken, our food system is broken. If we are going to do the right thing moving forward, small baby step changes are not going to get us there. We need to have the courage to make big changes to reduce inequality, to reduce consumption, to reduce injustice. With those words, let me hand it over to Jan to close us out with a song from his community in Brazil. Over to you, Jan. And thank you, everybody, for your participation. And let's hope the technology works.
Hi, so thank you. I agree. I have hope. I have faith in the conscience. So that music, Boraí, Maraê, Boraí Porã, is a sacred music of Guarani people to open your minds, to open your hearts to the consciousness. Live the respect, be nature, be supportive, solidarity. Help us, indigenous people, our organization. All depends of us. So, That's earth communication to our ancestors, to your spirits. Thank you to everyone. That's so important. Thank you from my heart.
Obrigado. Muchas gracias. Thank you everybody for your participation, and thank you, Jan, for closing us on that positive message. Forward to the struggles of the people of the Amazon, and forward to the struggles of the poor everywhere in the world. We're going to win, however difficult it is, because of the wonderful people like all of you here who are coming together to make a difference. Thank you, everybody. Lots of love. Bye.
Thank you. Gracias. Obrigada.
Gracias.
Gracias, hermanas. Gracias, amigos.
Igual, gracias.
Chao.
Un gusto. Chao.
Me gusta también.
Chao, un gusto. Gracias.